The Dungeons & Dragons franchise includes novels, board games, movies, and most relevant here, video games. Although plenty of games take inspiration or ideas from Dungeons & Dragons, the IP also has many official projects that utilize its settings or rule sets. D&D games come in a wide range of shapes and sizes, ranging from real-time action RPGs that prioritize combat over everything else, to slow-paced turn-based games driven by their quests and stories. But what are the best D&D games of all time? Today on Game Rant, we're counting down the 8 best Dungeons & Dragons games, ranked. At number 8, Dungeons & Dragons Online. This massively multiplayer online role-playing game is, as its name suggests, based on the D&D board game. Despite being well over a decade old, there are still people who frequent Dungeons & Dragons Online. Players can choose from a huge variety of races, including human, elf, dwarf, warforged, and half-orc. At its core, D&D Online is a typical free-to-play MMORPG, but it does have quite a few positives that work in its favor. For one, the combat system is quite good, even if fairly slow. More importantly, the game's build options are deep and complex, arguably ranking among the best in the genre. At number 7, Neverwinter Nights 2. Neverwinter Nights 2 was created by Obsidian Entertainment, much like a number of BioWare's sequel games. Set in the Dungeons & Dragons realm, it makes use of D&D 3.5 edition rules, a game in which players can pour over 60 hours. Neverwinter Nights 2 is an all-time great RPG that can stand alongside the original Balers Gate releases, and its expansions are also worth checking out. Like so many of Obsidian's projects, NN2's strengths are its writing, world building, and character customization. The story is especially strong. The combat system has its positives too, although its implementation might not hit the mark with everyone. At number 6, Dungeons & Dragons Shadow over Mystara. Your eyes aren't mistaken. There is in fact a side-scrolling beat-em-up game named after Dungeons & Dragons. Developed by Capcom and released in 1996, Dungeons & Dragons Shadow over Mystara offers a different experience than other entries in the genre, since it does take a few pages from role-playing games, which makes sense considering its IP. Players can upgrade their gear and equip new spells, which was certainly novel for the era. Its single-player mode is unique, offering multiple endings based on the path players take. Shadow over Mystara is worth playing for fans of the beat-em-up genre and Dungeons & Dragons devotees. At number 5, Icewind Dale. Overshadowed to an extent by the Balers Gate brand, Icewind Dale is another D&D classic that deserves to be highlighted, and the extended edition is a great package. This enhanced version includes the original and its expansions, Heart of Winter and Trials of the Lure Master. Icewind Dale's big selling point was a prioritization of combat, at least more so than the franchise's typical early 2000s RPGs. The story takes a backseat for most of the campaign, allowing players to focus on hacking and slashing their way through seemingly endless enemies. Ultimately, this results in an experience that is a lot of fun to play, but also is considerably more forgettable than any of the mainline Balers Gate entries. Speaking of, at number 4, Balers Gate Enhanced Edition. One of the earliest D&D games to hit the market, Balers Gate was remade and returned to the video game world in 2011 and multiple times after that. The first in what would become one of the most beloved franchises in the world of gaming, the original Balers Gate was released in 1998 and started a whole new age for computer-based RPGs. Character customization is central to the game, with the player building a character from level 1 and choosing their skills and stats the same way they would with a traditional tabletop game. The legacy continues with the 3D incarnation, Balers Gate 3, but the original entry is still a perfectly enjoyable game all these years later. At number 3, Planescape Torment. An RPG masterpiece, Planescape Torment is a wildly different experience from Balers Gate, despite them sharing some similarities. For one, the game takes place in Planescape rather than the Forgotten Realms, a setting that has largely been ignored by D&D projects. More importantly, Planescape Torment weaves a fantastic and complex story that features the best dialogue in 90s gaming. In many ways, it's almost a precursor to the equally great Disco Elysium. Planescape Torment shows its age in quite a few ways, with its combat being especially off-putting nowadays. However, players can largely ignore this element for most of the campaign, so it does not drag the experience down too badly. Otherwise, this is a classic RPG. At number 2, Balers Gate 2 Enhanced Edition. Balers Gate has been the crown jewel of D&D games since first appearing in the 1990s. The success of BioWare's original game and its sequel guaranteed a bright future for D&D projects, and and they are the main reason the third installment was so hotly anticipated for decades. The updated and enhanced version of the game includes Shadows of Amn, Throne of Baal, and the Black Pits 2. It has all the same technical advantages as the enhanced Icewind Dale, as well as the same versatility when it comes to groups or single players. Most D&D fans who are also gamers will likely testify that this is comfortably among the best D&D video games of all time. And at number 1, Balers Gate 3. Any young player looking to take their first steps into the world of D&D video games should start with Balers Gate 3. It's the IP's most complex package on the market, one that delivers complex storytelling, an expansive and flexible world, and challenging turn-based combat. Larian is probably the best CRPG studio of the last 2 decades, and Baldur's Gate 3 builds beautifully on some of the ideas introduced in Divinity Original Sin 2. Even though it shares a name with BioWare's classics, the third entry is far removed from those old-school masterpieces, and isn't necessarily a great pick for longtime fans yearning for a modernized version of Baldur's Gate 2. However, Baldur's Gate 3 arguably set a new benchmark for RPGs through its flexible storytelling, complex combat systems, and immaculate world building. Customization and player choice are the central tenets of the campaign, creating an experience that not only feels unique to the individual, but truly is unique to the individual. The game can be overwhelming for people who have never played CRPGs, but Larian does a very good job of easing newcomers into the style, while never really oversimplifying anything. Those are our picks for the best Dungeons & Dragons games. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching Game Rant. I'm Cameron, and we'll see you next time.